Well, hello, sister travelers. Have you ever found yourself thinking, I just need to get away for a while and not just a week and not just a long weekend? I mean, those are excellent ideas. But what if you could take some time to really step away from your normal routine for a month or two? How does that sound? Where you could actually slow down, breathe, pray, explore, and listen for God's voice without all the usual distractions. Today, we're going to be talking about something I've been hearing a lot more of is sabbatical travel. And you might think, sabbatical, well, what do you think when you hear that word? Most people think, well, that's for professors or people that have tons of money. I default to professors because I actually used to teach in higher education. And we remember advisors or, the tenured professors and how they were given the opportunity to go either away for a semester or maybe even a full year to research in their field and spend some time in their field, which sounded so wonderful to me. I am no longer in higher ed, but I have come back to that whole, well, what does it mean to have a sabbatical? And it doesn't mean quitting your job or traveling around the world for a year. Welcome to Solo Travel Adventures. I'm Cheryl Esch. And maybe the word is new to you, but sabbatical travel is popping up quite a bit lately. I first heard about it or got more in tune with how sabbatical can refer to travel. In 2024, Exodus Adventure Travel was actually having a competition, so to speak, where you had to apply. And they were looking for somebody to spend 50 days in a journey, a radical sabbatical is what they called it. They were celebrating 50 years in business. And I applied, of course, and I thought it would just be so perfect. 50 years, I'm in my 50s. I speak to other women in my 50s and up, and you would have to kind of chronicle what you did on those trips because they were sending you for a few. I think it was about a 2-month period. They sent you on several of their trips to document it and blog about it and picture about it and all that stuff. And I was really hoping to get it, but since then, that whole idea has just been taking seed in my mind, and now I'm even hearing it. Other people talking about it. And so it really intentionally just means stepping away from your ordinary life and go traveling during that time. And so that could look like a lot of different things, and just depends on what your goal is. But let's start with the word sabbatical. The word itself is generally just means that period away from work intended for rest, renewal, study, and reflection. But as we look at sabbatical actually through a biblical lens, we're reminded in Scripture, and God established many rhythms of work and rest. And we weren't designed to constantly produce, accomplish, manage, and care for everyone else and keep moving on and not spend some time resting. And that is actually, we think about the word Sabbath, and we talk about how God created heavens and earth, and on the seventh day he rested. And we call that the Sabbath, the day of rest. And where do you think the word sabbatical came from? Yes, it came from the word Sabbath. And in the Torah commanded a year of rest even to release land and people every 7th year. So when was the last time you took a Sabbath, a true Sabbath day of rest? First of all, ask yourself that, because I think if we keep pushing and pushing, we get to this point of almost feeling very burned out. And that is the other reason even that one day will help. But sometimes life will throw many things at us, and we become overwhelmed with all that we have to take care of. whether it's you are a caregiver for an aging parent, maybe you have a really heavy load at work, or you're trying to raise your kids as, maybe they're college age, or you're just changing careers, or you're managing the whole idea of being now an empty nester or divorcee. Many things can be coming your way. And if we are not spending time filling our cup, as I like to say, then that's when we get so raw and empty, and we even get maybe irritable because we haven't had that time to rest and soothe ourselves, whether that's physically, mentally, and spiritually. I think all three are very, very important. In Exodus 23, 10 through 11, it talks about that Sabbath year of rest. Now, wow, it would be amazing to take a Sabbath year rest. But what it says is, for 6 years you are to sow the fields and harvest the crops. But during the 7th year, let the land lie unplowed and unused. Then the poor among your people may get food from it, and the wild animals may eat what is left. Do the same with your vineyard and your olive grove. It talks about not just really that is also, it's intentional for our land, but it's also intentional for us as people to make sure we're taking that time off. And one way to approach that is really through travel. And you could look at taking some time away. And this is not running away. I don't believe in running away. I'm very intentional about any kind of time away from the day-to-day, such as traveling, being intentional in what your purpose for that time will be. And it's an important distinction. We're not escaping life. We're actually just stepping away so that when we come back, we are more prepared for life and more ready to handle and tackle what comes to us. And it is hard to get away from everything. I find taking a Sabbath, a day of rest, or trying to just take a weekend off and staying where you're at sometimes does not work, because we are really often distracted by things around us. We'll suddenly start thinking, oh, well, I need to do laundry. Oh, I need to take care of this. And then we have disrupted this time, this space that we're trying to create of just rest and space in time with God. And so a Sabbath, time away, like moving away from your place where you live, going somewhere. It doesn't even have to be far. It really creates room to pray, room to grieve even, room to think. I know I need that. And I often think in the strangest places, and that's because it's quiet. Maybe in the shower, right? Or in the bathroom when you're all alone. Room to dream. I love that one. Room to listen. And that's important too, to be listening for maybe what God is telling you. So what could a travel sabbatical look like? It could look like many different things, and it depends on what your goal is. Maybe it's 2 weeks, maybe it's 6 weeks. Maybe you're fortunate and blessed enough that it could be 3 months away. But whatever time you spend, you don't even have to leave the country, honestly. I just would imagine maybe you're renting a little cottage in a small town you wanted to explore, or maybe you're going to a quiet village in Europe, or you prefer the ocean. So you rent an apartment for a month or Airbnb near the ocean, or you just take a slow road trip and find some quiet and some space. And this is important. I'm seeing more people, more women wanting to take this. Now, some purposes for taking a sabbatical could be you need a sabbatical for your health. I've often really dreamed of taking a 2-week sabbatical to some detox cleansing place that would provide me with all my food and healthy food and take care of me in that way, and maybe allow me some space to do some low impact fitness, not much because of, the eating will be less. And it's like maybe juicing or whatever it is. And so some people might choose, hey, my health is really failing and I really need to spend some time on it. And I can't do that at home. And so one way to look at a sabbatical is through your health. You can go somewhere to take care of your body. And then there's maybe a sabbatical where you need to take care of your emotions, your soul. Where do you feel fed in your soul? Maybe you're trying to heal from still some grief or some past hurts, and that space away will allow that. Maybe it's spiritual and you really want to hear from God and you need that, again, that quietness, and you want to spend some time alone. Maybe you have a project, write a book. That's a great one. Getting away. God's called you to write this book. Having that quiet space or that sabbatical to go and do that. And so these are ideas of how you could utilize travel for a sabbatical. I like to say sabbatical travel. Yes. And more women are starting to do it and starting to notice how important it is in their lives. I guess my question to you is, what does that look like to you? Does that entice you? Is that something that you're wanting to try and consider organizing and coordinating? Because the questions you may be asking, what dreams have I put on my shelf that I want to maybe spend some time exploring? What brings me joy right now would be another question to ask, as far as maybe that helps you decide where to go, and releasing that on your time and your sabbatical. I encourage you to ask yourself some of these questions. And then the big one is how, if it does feel like something that's calling you and drawing you for that extended time away, that Sabbath or sabbatical away, where you can really rest and renew yourself, restore your body, mind, and spirit all at one time, possibly. I encourage you, and I actually encourage it to be more than a week. Because when I travel personally, I know it takes, really, you can't count that first day. That first day is travel. Your last day is travel usually. And then usually by the third day is when I have finally almost shut off things that, like remembering things that I had to do at home, or remembering those responsibilities and being haunted, I guess, by them. And usually by the third day or after, I've started to release that. And if you're only going a week, which is really not long enough, in my opinion, for a sabbatical, but work with what you got, right? If that's all you can manage, then you can work with that. But if you're able to take it to 2 or 3 weeks, this is where you're really going to be able to download and be able to separate, because we get distracted. We think about all the things we should be doing. But once you've gotten away long enough, it's almost like we start to deprogram our brain from those things, and we start to settle into this idea of resting and taking some time for ourselves. And I'm here to tell you, I give you permission again, and you don't have to wait for someone to say yes. But what you might want to consider is pray about it, of course. Consider your finances and responsibilities. One thing is, if you are a caregiver, that is a harder hurdle to get over, but it is possible. If you set up a strategic plan and you get things in place to be taken care of and ask for help, then it can allow you to get off and take that sabbatical that you might need. And ask, how could you make this happen? Seriously, what needs to happen? What help do you need? Is there some financial planning that you need to do so you can set aside some money for that? I suggest you start doing that now, and then consider where you might go and how long you could manage to get away. And even if you think it's only 2 weeks, maybe push it. Can I have 2 more days, right? Can it be 17 days? Can it be 20 days? How far could you stretch this time and make it magical for yourself and very intentional? So thinking about your budget, your housing, transportation, setting aside your work responsibilities, making sure that is possible, any family responsibilities, and, being humble and asking for help is, I think, a hard thing for us as women to do. We tend to take on a lot and usually not say anything. So I would consider finding a supportive tribe that could help you make this happen. Imagine that your life may be dependent on it, because you will come back so renewed and so refreshed. You might even come back with new perspective. You might have heard from God as to something new that's happening in you. And I think of that new thing that could be rising up. Isaiah 43:19 says, "See, I am doing a new thing." And I like that verse because it makes me think of this new season of life, and that even though we are 50 and up, we still have some big adventures ahead of us, not behind us. And there's still so much that we can do and that God has in store for us. And if we get overwhelmed and clogged up with staying hunched down or, on this day to day, and not having that space and the freedom to take your time and almost build up and fill your cup, as I always like to say. And so I encourage you, really pray and think about what this might look like for you. What could a sabbatical look like for you? And how long could you truly afford to step away and fully embrace the idea of a Sabbath rest, as we like to call a sabbatical travel opportunity? And if you need some help and guidance with that, I am here. I'm actually working with a client now that is currently doing a sabbatical, which is the other reason it's popping up more. And I really want to encourage other people to consider that idea for themselves. So thank you for listening. And all my information will be in the notes. If you want to get in touch with me, you can email me hello@cherylbeckesh.com. I would love to hear from you, and get out there and have that radical sabbatical journey.